Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, a podcast where we talk about, among other things, Brexit. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And this week, as we're Brexit is, what is it? We record this on the 29th of March 2019, Brexit D-Day. Like Brexit's supposed to be tomorrow. Doesn't look like it's going to be tomorrow, but who knows what's going on. And we've been sort of wanting to go back and look at Dominic Cummings. Well, I know I have. And just sort of like look back and read out and some of the things that he was saying, if he sort of had these reasons for exiting the EU. Let's see if we can, I don't know, draw any clarity or hope from the prospect of leaving the EU by having a look through his stuff.
And actually, that's the first time you've said it in those words. So I thought we wanted to understand how we'd been manipulated by Dom Cummings and his gang rather than trying to get some hope from them. But yeah, that sounds a much more optimistic approach.
A lot of the stuff on his website is all about how their campaign strategy and how they won. But yeah, like honestly, I kind of feel like we know enough about, okay, they were targeting ads, they were kind of they're exploiting people's private information without the people knowing that they had access to that level of information about them. Yeah. I kind of feel like and even like the film has sort of like covered that to some extent. Whereas, yeah, like, you know, 2 years ago when I tweeted when I discovered and tweeted at Dominic Cummings and said, this is not someone that I identify with in any way, by the way. I don't want to say my friend Dom. But he sort of pointed me at his blog and said it was to do with feedback loops and sort of signal to noise ratio and just the fact that a lack of error correction on a sort of slow moving enormous organisation. Which I was like, you know, and as we've said before, my first reaction is like, okay, well, you didn't say that in the Leave campaign. But my second thing is, okay, well, let's, you know, see what's wrong with the EU, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one thing that my sister and I had a conversation about with this current Brexit shambles in Parliament and all the bills that are getting put forward and voted on really quickly. Lydia's like, look how quickly laws can be changed if you want to. So, you know, we can be a big slow moving beast when most of the time, but actually in this moment of, you know, last minute Brexit shambles, people are like introducing new acts of parliament every day.
Well, it's like that guy said at Meaning, isn't it? Like, you know, if we are in a sufficient state of emergency, we can build enormous things very quickly. We can make huge changes very quickly. Yeah. And they've, you know, like anything, they've left it to the last minute. Yeah. To be honest, like, how was your week is going to be quite Brexit focused anyway. So.
Well, maybe for you.
Okay, all right. For me, so well, let's start with you, shall we? How
let's start with
you?
Me.
What emotional baseline, are we coming from today? How are you doing?
Well, I'm actually having quite a nice week because I was on holiday last week and it's still holding. The holiday spirit is still strong within me. I went to the Mother's Day breakfast at nursery this morning, which was chaos. I've never once been available for one of these things, so I went along and my child just clung to me because it was like walking into nursery, this looks very familiar but it's completely different, and what are all these grown-ups doing here? So she was just like, I don't like it, change is bad. So I had some beans on toast at nursery, and that was then yesterday I was it was the Brighton Restaurant Awards announcement day. The Bravos have been announced.
Who won?
And there's 16 categories. 16. Wow. Yeah, but Etch is the best restaurant. And then we had Etch, they're called. Etch is very good. We also had a category for sustainable eats, which we introduced this year. You know, we thought it was fitting in the state. So we have plant champions, but we also have sustainable eats, which was won by a restaurant in Brighton called Moshimo, who are a sushi restaurant, but for years, on an ongoing basis, they've campaigned for sustainable fishing, and they have a vegan night.
All right.
But I got to go on the radio yesterday, BBC Sussex, to announce one of the winners, and also to just, you know, give it a little shout out. And last time I was on, I felt really, because I was on to announce the beginning of the voting, and I felt the person just asked me loads of questions. I was like, fuck, I don't know. So I felt like a right dunce. I don't like to feel like a dunce, and I always the thing I always don't like most about myself is those moments when I know I could have done better. But yesterday I was prepared. I thought about what I was going to say, and I felt good, and so that was good. And I'd just come from the uni where I'd been teaching. What I did with my students yesterday, because I've got them doing a project, is we had like a mid-term, let's all show each other what we've done so far. And obviously there were some people that, despite my best efforts, had sweet Fanny Adams to show. They all looked at me like, you know, rabbits in the headlights. What? I was like, okay, you don't have to present on the screen, but we can come and huddle around your notepad. And like, well, one of them actually said, I lost the sheet of paper that I did my drawings on. I was like,
God.
But he still calls me Miss.
Cool.
So, you know, he still thinks I'm, you know, dog ate my house, mate. It's not my homo. I don't care. I said, to quote my late father, it's not me you need to impress. You're not doing it for me. But some of them had done some great work, and there were some really good ideas, because I've given them this kind of do good app theme. So it's kind of interesting to see the ones that have thought it through, the ones that haven't. But it also made me very aware of the fact that in what we do, you know, sort of working in technology and designing products most of the time is what we're doing. You just have to be so aware of so many things and so many patterns, because they're going, you know, like literally every idea. I was like, oh, well, have you watched this video about such and such? That's kind of an analog version of your idea. Or have you thought about... And so you kind of sitting there the whole time going... It's like, you know, one of the things that I remember when I first started out in engineering as well, we had to keep a logbook and a sort of a diary of stuff that we see, and the stuff that you've played with, and I don't know, apps you've tried out. Because for everything that they talk to me about, I'd go, oh yeah, well, I actually downloaded an app that does something similar, blah blah blah, and then you kind of go, have you tried it? Maybe you should install it. There might be some interesting patterns you can learn. But so it was kind of, I felt quite
knowledgeable, earning your money.
Yes, I did. I felt knowledgeable. I felt like I was there. I know how to do this.
No, I had a bit of that this week as well. Just like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely earning my bucks today. Like, this is not easy, what I am doing kind of moment. So going from that kind of imposter syndrome panic where it's like, it's not working and I just don't feel like making any progress, to like, I've just done something really, really difficult and I've done quite a good job of it. So thanks. Yeah. That's why you're paying me.
How was your week?
I woke up on Wednesday morning, you know, feeling a little bit of optimism about the petition and some stuff that I'd heard, and then just seeing the same bullshit coming out of these people as has been coming out of them for the entire time, which is people made a decision and now it is our responsibility to implement it. Like, at all costs. People understood what they were asking for, kind of being implied as like that. And I just got, Well, I noticed I was being snappy, and then I realised that was why, and then I kind of just went into full kind of angry, right, I've got to express this. I sort of like screenshotted the bit that had made me angry and then sort of like posted it everywhere with my reaction.
Yeah.
Sort of like, and then ended up doing a little video where I just sort of had an argument with, sort of kind of playing out this, I kind of scripted it out. Like I'm sort of reaching for the final draft a lot recently, like in the last few months. Is like I reached for let's write a script for this, and kind of like just wrote a little conversation between me and a lever, sort of trying to kind of like give them the best possible argument for, I didn't make it about xenophobia. I didn't make it about anything. I just kind of made it more about the UN poverty report and that situation. And, I just posted that up, and then like had the usual, oh, maybe loads of people. No one gives a fuck about anything I fucking post on the internet. Okay, what's the point? But anyway, like I'm feeling a bit more calm as of today.
It's just, yeah.
I was always sort of picturing, how would you make money as an artist in London, as a musician? I kind of feel like the best way would probably be to get into that kind of private members club circuit, where you can sort of charge a lot more and do something a bit more exclusive and cool. And I've sort of been to those places, but I'm certainly not a member of any of them. But we're doing something in this club Lalo on Goldbourne Road in West London, which apparently it's where Robert Downey Jr. did a screening of The Avengers. It's where like lots of famous people come through all the time, apparently. And I went to a thing there, a couple of weeks ago, the last one, and it's a very nicely put together place for privileged rich people. So I'm sort of like, okay, well, maybe if I can do a really good job on Tuesday, maybe I'll kind of like, maybe some opportunities to kind of do, make some money from all of this stuff I've been assembling might come through. But if not, still, I'm going to get my YouTube footage, and I think this next video I'm doing is going to be very good as well. It's sort of 10 stages to the experience of playing a live show, the experience of like biting the bullet and committing to something, through to the, packing up afterwards kind of thing. And I think it's quite good. So
I've committed to writing an article for which I will be paid.
Ooh. What about?
Well, it's supposed to be, it's for people doing digital transformation in government. So it's a topic. So I've got a choice. I've come up with two potential topics. One is from a product owner's point of view. What the fuck am I supposed to do with all these user research findings? Though obviously I won't call it that. And the other one is user research is not vox pops. Because people really do confuse, and I think this is relevant to any democracy conversation. They do confuse asking people what they want with understanding their users.
Or understanding what they need, like understanding what the actual solution is. Step one, you don't just do what the user asks for.
So yes, it's kind of so now I'm quite looking forward to those, and it's got a deadline, and also this week there was the Ministry of Communities, Housing and Local Government published a blog post about the project I was working on that I've just finished.
Link in the description, probably, if Ivanka sends me it.
You can see a picture of me pondering a whiteboard of Post-it notes.
Lovely.
Which is what I do all day.
Right. Brexit. First thing I want to say about Brexit is Theresa May's latest strategy of, if you take one of my deals, I'll resign. With the implication being that you weren't going to immediately resign whatever happened as soon as you got some whatever shit out the door. Like, who? I was like, I've played this out like a while ago. It's like, she's just going to bang and bang and bang and bang and bang away and try and force something through. But there's absolutely zero chances she's going to stick around after that, because she's going to be dead. She's going to be full on hives, constipate. I don't know. I don't know what she's going to have, but like there is no way she's going to have anything left by the time this is true. So the idea that that's a bargaining chip is just, to me, just absurd.
It's also,
it's weird. right?
It just shows the game for what it is, which is a game about the Conservative Party and not about the country or humans or their lives or their safety or anything. It's just a game. David Cameron started the game and they're now finishing the game, and it's just a game. It's a game that you have to be rich and privileged to play, and it is a game for arseholes.
God help me if Rees-Mogg becomes Prime Minister as well.
How could that? I mean,
God fucking help me. Like, I mean, Boris... Like, any of them, though. Like, absolutely any of them. And it's so boring to say, but it's like, these people are just wall-to-wall C units.
They are cunts of the highest order.
Wall-to-wall pricks. And it's just disgusting. So, yeah, so we've got that. But,
but on a positive note.
On a positive... Look, this... There was... one person we know behind this that had something a bit more than just raw xenophobia to his thinking. And I think we should try and unpick some of Dominic. So we sort of trawled through Dominic Cummings' blog a bit this morning, like for a slightly awkwardly long amount of time, but it was because a lot of his posts are about the strategy of winning the referendum, and like they made a computer system that was the first of its kind. But there's sort of debunking the idea that Farage's stuff was of any kind of relevance, and just a lot of the lies they were saying. But like what I was looking for was like a manifesto, or the reason that he thinks the EU is a bad thing to be a part of now. And I remember when he said it was to do with, error correction. And so we've found this one called Effective Action Number 4B, which isn't the most promising sort of introductory title, but okay. Expertise,
Catchy.
prediction and expertise in quotes, prediction and noise from the NHS killing people to Brexit. So I thought just like a skim through some of the sort of ideas he talks about in here, because he starts with, in part A, did the 4A is about extreme sports and some background to the question of true expertise and the crucial nature of high quality, fast feedback. So the reason for writing about this is that we will only improve the performance of government if we reflect on what expertise really is, and why do some very successful fields cultivate it effectively while others, like government, do not, how to select high-quality people, how to train people effectively to develop true expertise in skills relevant to government, how to give them effective tools, and how to program institutions differently so that people are more incentivized to optimize things we want to optimize, like error correction and predictive accuracy, and less incentivized to optimize bureaucratic process, prestige, and signaling, as our institutions now do to a dangerous extent. And connected so that two institutions are much better at building high-performance teams rather than continue normal rules to make this practically illegal. And so that 3, we have immune systems to minimise the inevitable failures of even the best people and teams. Which sounds eminently...
I mean, it sounds like you've talked about this before. Why don't we have a world where, or why can't we create a system where the very best toothpaste maker gets to make the very best toothpaste?
Yeah. Or
rather than this kind of generalised expertise and generalised competition about things that shouldn't be competed about. So at its core, there are, and I certainly, regardless of whether I agree with him about leaving or staying or any of those things, because for me the EU represents cooperation, and and that is the most important facet of it for me. So, I think we are all coming to the conclusion that the model of government or governing and democracy that is in place at the moment isn't working.
No.
And it needs some form of redesign, and often to start fixing something you need to understand that it's broken. So thank you, Dominic, for really smacking us in the face with how broken it is, rather than So there is, and what he's saying about, that sentence about, expertise. I was just trying to think, what is the expertise of government? Because
it's a good question.
Because governments govern areas of expertise. Do you know what I mean?
It's like ostensibly it's kind of a lawmaking, right? Or
yes,
kind
it's
of
lawmaking.
Asset allocation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like programming by writing documents to say what the rules are now.
Yes,
and
it's policy making.
Yeah, policy making, and in theory, it's like, okay, we're going to spend this much on this. We're going to spend this much on this. We're going to back this project. We're not going to back that project. And ostensibly with some sort of value system, but as it's sort of hinted at here, it's like the value system doesn't seem to particularly connect with anything beyond the political sort of games. So
if we speak, so I have got some experience of doing government projects that would then result in some sort of policy making or policy adjustment, or having to live with a policy that may have been formed without the right sort of technical expertise. So the last project I was working on, the Law Commission issued some findings about something and recommended that a database was created as part of their findings. And when a database sounds like a very sensible thing to somebody who doesn't know, who hasn't got to implement the database, shall we say? It's like a database. Okay, what's in it? How does the data get into it? How does the data get out to it? Who gets to put it in? Who gets to read it? How secure does it need to be? How there's like 1,000. When somebody says database to you or I, that raises 1,000 questions that to somebody else just sounds like a list. Sensible, yes, let's write a list down of all the things, so it's like and that's not mocking, that is just the difference between a problem and a solution, right?
Yeah, or just a shallow, like an idea that it's like, here's a tool in my toolbox, I'll just throw a database at it, not really knowing that the more databases you have, that's kind of a problem. So you've got to think about, is there already a database that is sort of almost doing this for us, or is it, no, we're going to create another one, and then you end up with this kind of systems, communications is, we don't need to get into it, but
exactly. What the thing, I love the idea that policies would be made by experts. Love it. Yes, let's have education experts making education policies and recommending to government. So you've got this sort of idea of expertise. I've also worked on projects that are about understanding how policy is made, and it is not a linear process of cleverness, data, therefore policy. But then, and the problem is that loath as I am to admit it, and I wish it weren't true, but there is no such thing as science that isn't ideological. So separating the sort of the measure, you still need values clearly expressed. Yeah. Because how you make an education system, if you're depending on what your values, your ideological objective is. So in the world of austerity versus not starving people, not having food banks. Sorry. So if we could separate understanding the ideological values, because that's what we need to vote on, not the how. We need to vote on the outcome that we want, and so then go, right, experts, given these parameters, because we as humans, we would like, well,
that's almost an AI training question then, isn't it? It's like, here are the outputs we want for these inputs, like, can you solve this? And not destroy us.
Did you see that video that somebody went around, I don't know, Guildford, and went, do you believe in free education? Yes. Do you believe in free NHS? Yes. Well, therefore, you're a Corbynist. And they were like, no, I'm not. I voted Conservative for the last 40 years. But it's separating this sort of the labelling from the actual outcome people want would be a beautiful way. But, but why not? Why not start dreaming about a world where, okay, do you want bees to continue to exist on the planet? Yes, brilliant. Then we need to ban whatever, we need to ban this pesticide. It cannot continue to exist if you want bees to exist. It's not compatible. The little bit you read out made me think of 1,000 things all at once.
Well, I'm kind of like looking forward to the next sentence. So in SW1 now, I'm so in politics. I just call it SW1. Those at the apex of power practically never think in a serious way about the reasons for the endemic dysfunctional decision-making that constitutes most of their daily experience or how to change it. What looks like omni-shambles to the public and high performance in technology or business is seen by insiders, always implicitly and often explicitly, as normal performance. Crises, such as the collapse of Carillion or our farcical multi-decade, multi-billion aircraft carrier project, occasionally provoke a few days of headlines, but it's very rare anything important changes in the underlying structures, and there is no real reflection on system failure. This fact is why, for example, a startup created in a few months could win a referendum that should have been unwinnable. It was the systemic and consistent dysfunction of establishment decision-making systems over a long period, with very poor mechanisms for good, accurate feedback from reality, that created the space for a guerrilla operation to exploit. Wow.
But he's right.
Yeah.
He's 100% right. I mean, this is why the work that was done around the government digital service and changing the ideology, and I will use that word advisedly, of technical projects being done in an agile way versus old school, let's spend 2 years writing some sort of specification document and then putting it out to tender and then get Capgemini to come in and charge us $2,000 a day to type up more documents. That's why Carillion failed, is because it's built on bullshit and people who know how to play the game and trying to disrupt. I mean, it is hard. It is hard because I'm seeing it. You see it. Somebody tweeted the other day. I could talk about this. Somebody tweeted the other day that, like, why is Microsoft so shit? Why are they not even average? And why? Because, and my response to that was that we have to admire their sales technique, their branding technique that has meant that all these organizations with very limited knowledge and expectation of technology are buying these expensive, overinflated systems that they don't need, inflicting them on themselves, and then commissioning more systems that they have low expectations of because they've fucked about with SharePoint for the last 20 years.
Yeah, that expectations thing is not a word I'd ever used for that. But yeah, it really is. They just what? But then you'd sort of think that they'd then pick up their phone and go, wait a minute. And that's happening. That's happened more and more in recent years. They'll be like, well, why is this like this, but my work computer is like this? So that's when I get brought in a lot of the time. Yeah,
but that is happening more and more. But in government, in government, local and central, the people making the decisions are not empowered to say this is bullshit.
Yeah. Or the parameters of their engagement with it are so kind of like besides the point. And I think I've said this before, but like when I was in housing and we were getting a database done, like all these workshops where they were like, okay, what do you want the field? What do you want the schema to be? Like, what do you want this field to be? Okay, we're going to have address 1, address 2, address 3, address 4, address 5, address. Okay, should we have like 10 of those? Okay, cool. In capitals, letters. Okay, fine. And like just kind of like it was like, you're supposed to be the experts in databases. Why are you making me do the schema? And why are you making all these people that have no clue of how to design a database design your database for you while you sort of stand there in a suit, clearly not having much of a clue of what's involved here?
Some of the stories that I could tell you, it's kind of a self-perpetuating thing because government often employ generalists, so the people doing the job don't know enough. They lack a basic curiosity, a basic desire to understand what the systems are doing. So they are, that old school quote that no one got fired for hiring IBM. I think you can apply. Nobody got fired for buying a Microsoft system. They'll buy a Microsoft system and then they come up with random fucking policies that are designed to save them time as IT people instead of to impact. It's like this.
You end up with a computer that you can't do anything on.
Literally, like social workers are not allowed. There's been this big hoo-ha to get them smartphones, but they're not allowed WhatsApp.
Right. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So and everybody, I challenge anybody. I in a poll, most people I know have a family WhatsApp group of some description, or a let's go swimming group, or it's beautiful for group chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you've got a group of foster carers that you want to communicate with, WhatsApp is a very accessible option. But if you as a social worker aren't allowed to install it, and it's because there is no explanation why. It's because IT.
Yeah, it's because they made a decision without really understanding the ramifications, and then just there's no feedback loop there. There's no way of their decision being shown to be wrong because it's... No. And then it's just this kind of slow death. And it's exactly what Dominic is talking about. I do want to read more of this because I'm actually like, I'm sort of almost getting chills from just kind of like reading this. Like now, because I've sort of skimmed it, but now that it's like reading the words with you, it's like, it's just a different experience. So, like, this makes it particularly ironic that even after Westminster and Whitehall have allowed their internal consensus about UK national strategy to be shattered by the referendum, there is essentially no serious reflection on this system failure. It is much more psychologically appealing for insiders to blame lies, devilish use of technology to twist minds, and so on. Okay, well, perhaps the most profound aspect of broken system is that they cannot reflect on the reasons why they're broken, never mind take effective action. Instead of serious thought, we have high-status insiders like Campbell reduced to bathos with whining on social media about Brexit impacting mental health. Okay, we're getting into some pretty mean stuff. This is about... It's going to start taking personally. This lack of reflection is why Remain-dominated insiders lurched from failure over the referendum to failure over negotiations. OODA loops across SW1 are broken, and this is very hard to fix. If you can't orient to reality, how do you see your problems well? So, and then OODA is observe, orient, decide, act. And there's a little diagram. So just to sort of like, I may use it as the thumbnail, but sorry, but I can see you holding your hand up. But I just wanted to, so the observe, orient, decide, act is, so you kind of look at what's going on, cultural traditions, genetic heritage, new information, previous experience, and analyses and synthesis. That's in your sort of orient. And then decide is a decision, hypothesis, and then action is like test, and then you're supposed to loop back round. But I guess the idea is that they're not doing that thing, which is a thing. So it's broken. I broke it. Look, I showed how broken this broken thing is. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Is that what he's just said?
I think it is, really. I think it is.
In the commercial world, big companies mostly die within...
What does bathos mean?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I kind of read it out going, where is it? Bathos. I'm going to right-click on it, look up bathos. An effect of anticlimax created by an unintentional lapse in mood from the sublime to the trivial or ridiculous. His epic poem has passages of almost embarrassing bathos. He says... Campbell reduced to bathos with whining. So just saying that Campbell's thinking has just gone tiny, because apparently mental health is just worrying about mental health is just bathos. Okay, well, you start to lose me there.
I mean, we're not reading this man's blog because he's a nice person.
No, we're reading it because he's a fucking someone that just really shook everything. Yeah. It's fucked everything up for... Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why his solution had to be why is
smash it up?
Yeah, smash it up. But
I think that's a reflection on privilege.
Right.
That's, you know, what he does not understand, you know, like, it is just a reflection of privilege. He doesn't understand. If he talks about people dying of hunger, to him that's just, you know, a footnote in history, or I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, it's
the
not
fact
real
that he's
to him.
talking about real people in these terms,
Yeah,
so he's worried about the system. But like, the fact is, like, and we've talked about efficiency. The fact is that it's inefficient. Its inefficiencies aren't entirely a negative factor. And there's only and this kind of trade-off of kind of enforcing values versus, you know, the more efficient you get at enforcing your compromised values, the worse it is for the people there. So in a way, like, an inefficiency around how quickly you can kind of break everything is kind of a good thing, and then you get someone else comes in after a bit. If that's kind of the feedback loop in reality. And sorry, Dom, that it's too slow for you, but things, you know, Ivanka, you've seen government try to bring in these concepts from the private sector with sort of growing, like, a bit of success, but it just takes them a long time. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a negative.
No. And I mean, what the guys, you know, the starting of GDS, you know, just picking off GovUK and doing it, you know, that was a small group that went in and showed that something could be done. You know, like, you didn't have to break the whole of government
it's like
to prove that another way is possible.
Yeah, it's like I look at my old code and I go, oh my God, I would just want to start again and throw it all away. But I've done that before, and I know that by the time you've finished re-implementing something, you've got some different issues, and you probably kind of feel bad about it. And as David Hennemeyer Hansen says, like, you got better, your code didn't get worse. And it's like, government didn't get worse, we're getting better at understanding the problems of it. But that doesn't mean you throw away the government you have entirely. It means you have to iterate. You have to kind of like put tests around the legacy. Like, what you haven't done, Dominic, is made sure that people are kind of protected as you, like, it's not a careful refactor, which is what you should be doing. It's smash everything up and disrupt everything just to prove a point.
You've got no rollout plan.
Yeah,
you've got no rollout plan. You've got no rollback plan. You've got no plan.
And you made the mistake of confusing what is like a system, the project going well, with what's best for the people that rely on that project, on that government. Right? What is the best thing for the people should be your question, not how do I make government the most efficient possible thing in the world.
If he was in charge of, I don't know, rolling out some new servers, the product would crash. It would be offline while it happened instead of it being done sensibly. Yeah, I mean, like...
And you think the commercial world would allow that? Do you think a website would?
No, exactly. Like... I mean, this is what it's like, this is not how you can have fundamental change without breaking the front end. You know, things can be left in place as you make fundamental changes to the back end of a system. And you know, the lights can stay on. And what's happening at the moment is it's making it really, really hard for civil servants to keep the lights on. And a lot of money is being wasted. Billions of pounds are being burnt on being forced to come up with backup systems to keep the lights on.
And the contingency plans of the commercial world and all that kind of thing.
All of us are having to sort of go,
what am I doing? Just the cost of it. And as a programmer, like SQLite is this tiny, lightweight database that is just in everything. Like, it's in your everything, and all the documents on your phone are basically using this database, and it's absolutely ubiquitous. And they had it, and the way you kind of like change something is you get it under test to make sure that the behavior, you know, that the behavior is working if you change something. And they literally like rewrote the entire implementation, all the code. But because they had such strong unit testing against it, because their testing was so strong, it didn't matter. because so they got all these kind of benefits of better code, but there was no effects in terms of using the thing, which is exactly the opposite of what Dominic's done. He's just gone, okay, I'm just going to take a hammer to this thing and just fuck the consequences. We've got to have just chaos for a while in order for anything to change.
This idea of a revolution it's like, Andrew Sims he talks about rapid change, but he doesn't talk about destruction.
Right.
Do you know what it is? We know more. We are cleverer. We don't have to chop the heads off the whole royal family to have a revolution anymore. We can simply invite them to leave Buckhouse and switch the lights out on their way out. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's that sort of like, we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so in the commercial world, big companies mostly die within a few decades because they cannot maintain an internal system to keep them aligned to reality, plus startups pop up. These two factors create learning at a system level. There's lots of micro failure, but macro... Let's just look at the next paragraph. How to distinguish between fields dominated by real expertise and those dominated by confident experts, in quotes, who make bad predictions. We know a lot about the distinction between fields in which there is real expertise and fields dominated by bogus expertise. Daniel Kahneman summarises two fundamental tests to ask about a field. One, is there enough informational structure in the environment to allow good predictions? And two, is there timely and effective feedback that enables error correction and learning? So in fields where these two elements are present, there is genuine expertise and people build new knowledge on reliable foundations of previous knowledge. Some fields make a transition from stories and authority to quantitative models and evidence or experiment. As scientists have said since Newton, they stand on the shoulders of giants. How do we assess predictions about the future? Good judgment is often gauged against two gold standards, coherence and correspondence. Judgments are coherent if they demonstrate consistency. So, politicians are fuckwits, is the point of all this, right?
Politicians are given the wrong... In a word, like, go back to my WhatsApp example. There is no loop for reflecting on that. But there is me. I, Ivanka, can be in an organisation and I am paid to go... fuck this is wrong. I'm telling you it's wrong and this is why it's wrong and you need to change it. And it's my job to make sure that happens. Because me as an individual, me, Vanka, I am... My professionalism relies on long-term benefit, not short-term people liking me or thinking that I'm fun or whatever it might be. Like, I want the thing to be better, and that's what my career is based around. You might not have. There might be some things that are going to be difficult, but hopefully in the long term, and I'm measured on these long-term successes or longer-term benefits, or that's what I choose to be measured on. Whereas if you're in politics, there's no real, it's very few politicians are playing that sort of long game of wanting to leave a legacy for society.
And I see them trained with this absolute idea that they can never be wrong. That's the other thing that I think this comes from. It's like they've been, like, and we've covered it. We've covered all this, but like, Eton appears to me to teach privileged people that they can't be wrong, that they not even to consider the idea that something's to do with what they've done. It's always external. If there's a problem, it can't be something they've done, or there just isn't a problem. They just can't see that there's a problem. So that's what you get. Rees-Mogg going, what do you mean? What Brexit problems? We haven't even done Brexit yet. It's just the ability to absolutely tune out anything that isn't consistent with the idea that I am right and any whimsical thought I have is the truth. And I hypnotize people into believing that just by talking in my posh voice. Yeah. And they get very far on that. They get to the top on that.
When I wrote that thread that got all that, and the guy said, one of the comments, because somebody said, this is, they'd made some flippant remark, and then somebody had come back and said, no, this is a prayer of a sailor who has weathered some storms. And it's like, this is where privilege, you know, understanding your privilege is so important. Being dismissive of other people, like, you know, of other people's situation is, you know, it's very easy to do that unless you're willing to acknowledge that you're lucky. It's like your reaction to the mental health thing. Do you know what I mean? You know, you read that, and to you that is not something that can be dismissed ever. And it's this sort of the privilege element of this. I don't know.
There's no punishments though not checking your privilege if you wield all the power, and other than violence against you. Like how does it, you know, that, so maybe that's what Dominic does know. Like, okay, well, the only way to get through to these people is sort of violence, by destroying everything they think that they've built or that they represent. I wanted to just cover this bit, which is people fail to learn even from the great examples of success and the simplest lessons. And then he's got this bit where he goes, perhaps you're thinking, well, learning from these brilliant examples might be intrinsically really hard, much harder than Cummings thinks. I don't think this is quite right. Why? Partly because millions of well-educated and normally ethical people don't learn even from much simpler things. And the examples were like Apple's success and kind of various things like that. But I will explore this separately soon, but I'll give you just one example. The world of healthcare unnecessarily kills and injures people on a vast scale. Okay, so now we're back to something that we can kind of see eye to eye on. And like we're back to talking about the people again. Two aspects of this are, one, deep resistance to learning from the success of very simple tools like checklists, and two, a deep resistance to face the fact that most medical experts do not understand statistics properly and their routine misjudgments cause vast suffering. Plus, warped incentives encourage widespread lies about statistics and irrational management. E.g., people are constantly told things like, you've tested positive for X, therefore you have X, and then they then kill themselves. We know how to practically eliminate certain sorts of medical injury or death. We know how to teach and communicate statistics better. These are much simpler than putting man on the moon, creating internet and PC, or being great investors. Yet societies don't do them.
I would like him to cite a reference for his vast scale of injury, frankly. That's my one reaction to this.
Well, he's complaining about suicide there, but then also sort of weirdly dismissed the idea of mental health being a problem earlier. But I don't want to, because we're not reading this verbatim, then we may have, I don't want to kind of necessarily
miss something. But I think this, I mean, he's making a bold claim. So I don't disagree with his point that people don't learn. I mean, everyone's always banging on about, you know, those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it and all that kind of shit. And we don't learn. I mean, it's very hard to learn. I think he's conflating a few things. So part of that Wellcome Trust research that I did, I interviewed this woman who's, I've probably already told this story, but one of my participants is like one of the UK's most eminent surgeons of a particular type. And she talked about the fact that she used to be part of a panel of surgeons who would go and talk to the then Secretary of Health and, you know, talk to them about improving patient care and blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about a particular thing, and this politician turned around and said, yes, that's very interesting, but how does it translate in a marginal seat? Because she said, well, then one must ask oneself, what is the point of going to see these people if it's not to improve patient care? Because she doesn't give a flying fuck about whether or not he's going to get elected in his marginal seat. She's learnt something which she wants to implement to improve patient care. That's what she's doing there. And it's like that quote to me was like, you know, that is gold dust.
Exactly
but that is
Yeah,
that is exactly
feedback loop of politics.
That is a fucked up feedback loop of politics.
Look, at the risk of doing the sort of alt-right type thing where they give you a premise and then move on to the consequences of that premise, whether or not you accept that premise. And I do smell some hyperbole in this healthcare. I care about healthcare killing people on a vast scale because doctors don't understand statistics. It smells bad, and then now he's going to explain why this thing is true. Whether or not we believe it's true, but the reason, and it's in bold, and I think it kind of sums up Dominic Cummings' perspective, is because we do not incentivize error correction and predictive accuracy. People are not incentivized to consider the cost of their noisy judgments. Where incentives and culture are changed, performance magically changes. It's the nature of the systems, not the nature of the people, that is the crucial ingredient in learning from proven simple success. In healthcare, like in government generally, people are incentivized to engage in wasteful or dangerous signalling to a terrifying degree, not rigorous thinking and not solving problems. So, wasteful, dangerous signalling. Some appalling killings are inevitable, but the social work bureaucracy will keep allowing unnecessary killings because they will not align themselves with error correction. Undoing flawed incentives threatens the system, so they'll keep killing children instead. And they're not particularly bad people. They're normal people in a normal bureaucracy.
I'd like him to cite some references. Yeah. Like, you do know me? Like, I could
Did his mum die or something? Did his mum go? Is this what we came to here? Like, did someone close to him kill themselves because of a bad medical diagnosis? Is this what we're seeing? Like, what?
Because so, you know, he's citing examples that I happen to know some bits and pieces about. And yeah, of course, I mean, what he's talking about is a bloody checklist manifesto book. Have you read it?
No.
There's it's a good book. It sounds brilliant. You read it. A guy called Atwell something. It's called the Checklist Manifesto anyway. And he talks about the fact that doctors don't use checklists, but airlines do. And the reason that, for example, that airline was able to land in the river, you know, the one the movie was made out of, was because in whatever circumstances, pilots are trained and have a manual that says, if this happens, do this. And they follow the process, and the process kicks in because you've got a checklist, and then errors don't happen. And it sounded, I read it, I don't know, when I was working at Canonical. It's very interesting. There's some things you can bring across from it. So yes, it's interesting, but that you can't say implementing checklists is going to stop baby pee happening. That's like not in a world where there's a fucking austerity.
I think we're seeing some spectrum-y thinking here, aren't we?
Well, right? It's also the idea that he is right and that these people that he was arguing with were wrong, and he's dismissing their expertise himself. When actually, if you want a good solution, a good design solution to a problem, which is how do we prevent children dying or being killed, we do that by actually designing a solution to that problem. Not I read a book about checklists. So now I've heard about this thing called a database. What we'll do is we'll do a database. I'm sorry, but I think his conversation is about, you know, here's a solution I've found. I think I can apply it to your problem, rather than what's the problem? What do we need? How do we fix it? And again, I've got like lots of qualitative data and observations from sitting in like social care hubs and listening to the phone calls and looking at the systems these people are having to use that are being sold to them by other privileged cunts who are not thinking about what the software is going to be used for. Do you know what I mean? It's like this man's making me angry now.
What I wanted to do was I thought maybe we just read out the sentences with bold in them. So let's just kind of skim over the last things where he's put bold in, kind of tie this up. Okay. So some fields like extreme sport or physics, genuine expertise emerges because of fast, effective feedback on errors. In many fields, low-tech, very simple checklists have been extremely effective, e.g. flying aircraft or surgery, as you've sort of touched on. Successful individuals like Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio also create cognitive checklists to trap and correct normal cognitive biases that degrade individual and team performance. Then a bit further down, if you're in Whitehall now watching the Brexit farce or abroad looking at similar, you will see from page 26 here, a checklist on how to manage complex government projects at world-class levels. If you find this interesting, then read the whole paper. I will elaborate on this. I'm also thinking about a project to look at the intersection of roughly 5 fields in order to make large improvements in the quality of people, ideas, tools and institutions that determine political government decisions and performance. I see we've got this quality of people idea sort of like rearing its, so that's conservative idea sort of like rearing its head again. There is a pecking order and it is true. The science of prediction across different fields, what we know about high performance in different fields, technology and tools, just political decision-making affecting millions of people and trillions of dollars, communication. We need to surround relatively specific problems with a more general approach. Attack at the right level will see specific solutions automatically pop out of the system. One of the most powerful simplicities in all conflict is winning without fighting is the highest form of war. If we approach the problem of government performance at the right level of generality, then we have a chance to solve specific problems without fighting, or rather without fighting nearly so much, and the fighting will be more fruitful. This is not a theoretical argument. If you look carefully at ancient texts and modern case studies, you see that applying a small number of very simple, powerful, but largely unrecognized principles that are very hard for organizations to operationalize can produce extremely surprising results. How to jump from the idea to reality more soon.
I mean, look, well done him for creating a startup that achieved a thing. Great. You've proven something. But actually, all he's proven that he was able to affect the results of one. He's not created a system. He's not solved a system or designed a system solution or any of those things. What he's done is taken a goal and met that goal. And that is not what governing a country is about. And it's not about, so, I mean, I'm sure he had a lovely checklist that helped make a computer system that affected people's voting. Brilliant. But that's not balancing out the health plus social care, plus roads, keeping the lights on, plus roads, plus internet security, plus physical security, plus housing, plus, like the complexity of a country as a system is, like...
At the end of the day, like, this is... you can't automate this.
No. This is the thing, like, what he might say, he said about aeroplanes managed to ship 4 million people around the world every day safely. Yes, every single social care case is unique.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's the problem of moving an object from one point in space to another, whilst complex, is nothing compared to kind of like... Yeah.
Is actually also his idea that social care is about stopping children from dying is in itself ideologically wrong, because what we should be doing is helping children flourish.
Yeah, we need to be bringing people up to a level, not just...
we need to... It's like people boasting in social care. Children in care now get 3 GCSEs. That is not enough fucking GCSEs. Like, they need 8 GCSEs.
Yeah, it's myopic. It's fucking myopic. And guess what? We've got some simple solutions too. Maybe instead of making a complex a big database and loads of checklists, we just give people in poverty some money.
Feed them, because that was an interesting thing. We were looking at some
just give them money. If poverty is the problem is money. Let's just take that line. They just need some money then, and then go from there.
One of the statistics. So I was looking at a bunch of stats around social care a couple of weeks ago, and there's a really big spike in children being taken into care about 6 to 18 months after that 2008 credit crisis.
God damn.
Poverty is bad in every in a multitude of complex ways, and solving poverty is and raising the baseline of humans' existence. It's like Lydia says, like it's cheaper to give people money than to solve all these problems. Yeah. You know,
people know more about their situation. Like, just give them enough, and they're like,
just give them some money so they can live.
He's got this sort of myopic focus on the problems of the system, and we're all frustrated with how shit politicians are. There's no doubt about it. But you're not right, Dominic. And what you've done is, you've got some inside knowledge. You've seen the system at work. You know, you've been in SW1 for long enough to have been able to sort of take some principles from the private sector to just exploit its problems. To what end? Fuck knows, because this isn't going to make... And you don't know anything about, like, how to refactor a legacy system, clearly, or you wouldn't have just fucking put a bomb under it. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I could not speak for Ivanka.
Oh, I also appreciate it.
And this is now entering outro. If you like the podcast, we have registered the impressive domain grandpodcast.com. So just go there. There's a subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, so that it automatically comes to your phone. Imagine that. Sorry for everyone who knows about podcasts who feels very patronised now, but that'll just give you an insight in what it's like to be mansplained to, which women have to deal with every day. So get over yourself. I had a thing with another cycle guy that I got cross again. Fuck these guys, condescend. Like, I just wish I'd said. I did say, like, is this what are you trying to? How is this? What is this customer service? Why are you trying to make me feel bad about myself? I kind of wish I'd said, like, do you talk to everyone like this? Like, and I'm sure you do, but it's not cool. Anyway,
I don't like it. Yeah.
You can find me at michaelforestmusic.com. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
You can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
What else can they do?
It would be really, really cool if you'd write us some reviews, some ratings, send us a little message. We do love them, and it makes us feel special and appreciated. It does. I'm surprised at how much I like it.
Yeah, no, it's good. Let's all
really
just
nice.
Tweet us in solidarity over... I mean, like, this is going to come out 2 days... it's going to come out after the 30th. It's going to be, the 2nd of April. So what does the world look like? I mean, I think either way, we've sort of covered some interesting stuff here today.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
But anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, 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 bye.